looks like we're live. Welcome to KMMU. This is Duane Bentzen, and we are live broadcasting on Rumble, YouTube, Twitter, and of course on our website, kmmu.org. We are excited, happy to have Diane Livingston with us today. Hello, Diane.
Hi there.
What I would like is she's running for State School Board District 6. Maybe Diane, you can tell us a little bit about District 6, where that is, and then tell us something about Diane Livingston. Thank you.
Thanks, Duane. It's really nice to be with you today, and I'm so excited to be able to talk about education today. So yes, District 6, it's actually really quite confusing because the district, when you hear the word district, sometimes people think about it as a local district, and no, this is a state district, and it's District 6, which is East Salt Lake, Mill Creek, Northeastern Holiday, and most of Park City. So that's the full district. It's a very large area. In fact, it's twice the size of, and sometimes 3 times the size of a Senate or legislative race. So
how many constituents do you have in that district? Do you know?
a lot, probably over 200,000. What we figure is 110,000 active voters.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow,
it's
that is bigger than a Senate district. Yeah.
mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
how many districts are there total?
Right. So there are 15 districts in the state of Utah, and as far as I can tell, they are all drawn out based on population. For example, Joanne Brinton, who's going to be representing down in southern Utah, her area is all of southern Utah. So you can imagine getting around to her districts.
I love Joanne. She's great, and
Yeah.
we've had a bunch of different candidates on for a bunch of different offices. So we're trying to get the word out for those that are willing to come on our show.
Yeah.
So,
Great.
so yeah, that's a lot. How do they determine what the districts are? Is it just gerrymandering, and how do they do that? Do you know? Maybe you don't know.
I don't have the answer to that. I'm not sure. Good question.
Okay. Well,
We can look that up.
investigate further because I'm fascinated by by all of the legislation that and districts and stuff that goes on here in Utah, which is why you're here. Okay, so
Yeah.
tell us about Diane. What? Who are you? What do you do? Why are you doing this?
Okay, good questions. First of all, I am a resident of Park City. My husband and I have lived here for 26 years with our family, and we have 6 children who've all gone through the public education system here. Now we have 13 grandchildren, and a couple of those are in Utah public education schools. So you could
Wait,
say I have a
you're
vested
not old
interest
enough to
here.
have grandchildren.
What?
You're not old enough to have grandchildren. Never
Oh,
mind.
yes,
That
I
was,
am.
keep going. Keep
Yes.
going. Thank you.
Right. So we've lived here for a long time. I am a former teacher, and and lots of people ask me, well, where have you taught? So I taught in Provo at it's a rehabilitation center, a live-in residential unit for kids who need some help. And that facility was right across the street from Utah Valley. It's not there anymore, but that's where I was. Uh, since we've been here in Park City, I've been a substitute teacher on and off, and also volunteered in the schools, running science fairs and helping little kids to learn how to read, pulling out and trying to help them learn to read. That I love doing that work. And working in the nonprofit space, I've done a lot of years of nonprofit work. So, yeah.
So what made you become a teacher? How long have you been doing it, and what made that happen that you wanted to teach?
Okay, that's an
It's a tough
interesting little
job.
story. So my dad is a teacher. He's a high school teacher. My grandma is a teacher, and my mom that's her trade. She didn't ever teach actually, but that's what she graduated in. So when I went away to college, I thought I am going to do something different, much more glamorous. And I tried different things, and honestly, at the end, I just went back to teaching because it's my love. I love teaching. I was teaching my little siblings how to read and write when they're younger than me. And so it's just, talk to any teacher, it's just in your blood. You love to watch children learn. And so that drew me into the profession. And when I haven't been teaching at school, I'm teaching my own children and helping them. And so it's been a great field for raising a family too. So
Well, and I have taught for years, but I have I teach for nonprofits. I teach classes on mental illness. It is a tough job. How do you find teaching? What are your feelings on teaching? Then we're going to get into why you're running for state office. But teaching is a tough job. It's really difficult.
yes, but I think the actual teaching itself is so delightful. It just makes my heart sing when I'm teaching a lesson and talking about the material. It's just so fun. But yes, there are aspects about teaching the system that are so challenging. And and this is actually one of the reasons that I got into this race, is because as a substitute, I can remember this spring being in one classroom and just looking around at all the challenges that teachers have to teach
Well,
a
and
variety of students with
I
their
love
limited
the light
resources.
bulb go on over somebody's head. It's just like it just makes you feel good when you see that light bulb go on when you're teaching somebody
Mhm.
something. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so
so
true.
so you're in the you want to get into the education business really now. What's your assessment of education? How's Utah doing?
My assessment of education. Wow. I mean, there's so much there, but okay, so let me just explain that when I decided to run, the first thing that I did was I went down. So we've lived here a long time. So, and I've substituted and I've been in the schools. So I know a little bit about what's happening here where I live. So I decided the first thing I did was I went right to the areas in Salt Lake where our district is to meet with. I made appointments with all the superintendents, met with them and have meaningful conversations, and lots of principals. I dropped by as many as I could in the summer when they're not busy, and spoke with them, and lots of teachers and parents. And what I realized is that they are so devoted. They are trying and working um, so dedicatedly. I don't know if that's a word, but they are so dedicated to their
I,
work. And yet, Duane, what I found is that there's there's a real gap between um, what's happening at the state board and what's happening at the local level. We are lacking communication between the two. And this is really what propelled me. So I decided to run because I saw, wow, there's lots of things that could be helped. But then when in the process of doing my research this summer, I discovered that there's a real gap there. And we're missing representation at our local level at the board, because our present board member really is not spending time in our schools with our leaders and teachers. And that's a real loss.
well,
So
I asked you how many people are in your district, but how many schools are there? Do you know? Do you know that number or roughly?
there's roughly about 60 schools in our district.
And that's
Now,
all. That's all levels.
when you add the charter schools, that's going to be even higher. We have 4 school districts. And then each of those districts they need to change the word. It should be maybe Region 6, but it's District 6. So each of those school districts has maybe 10 or 12 elementary schools and then a few
Wait.
junior highs. And
Inside the district, there are like sub districts, and
yeah,
is that
it's
what you're saying?
confusing, isn't it? Yeah, so we have
Yeah.
District
Okay.
6, which is the big, Salt Lake and Park City, that
All right,
whole
tell me again the number of schools roughly.
I would say probably around 75.
Wow,
Mhm.
that's a lot of students.
Yeah, it
And
is.
is that all grades? Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah, K through 12.
K through 12. Okay.
And that includes charters. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of students.
It is a lot of students. It really is.
I think they're not being represented, huh?
Well, I mean, I've been in these offices with principals and superintendents, and I've been to school board members, like the school board president. Um, again, they're not seeing our board member, and so this is what I thought, wow, we need a better voice at the board. I think we would have better laws and we would have better policy if we had someone who knew firsthand what's happening at the local level and had really working relationships with these people so that when you're at the board, you're making decision on a vote, you're talking to legislators and kicking around a bill or trying to create policy, I can say, "Oh, I know where my people stand. I was just there." Or I can call them up and say, "Hey, friend, what do you think of this? Do you think you can pull this off?" So I think those kinds of conversations are incredibly important. And this is my gift to my district. I don't have another job. This is all I will be doing besides being grandma. But
There's a big job there too. But so you're
yeah.
gonna you would be working with legislators and
Oh, yeah.
teachers and administrators, and is it like
Mhm.
are you like a liaison between the state legislators and what does this job entail? What does it do? What would you be doing? I mean, you
Yeah,
kind of
good question. So,
kind of
yes, to all of the above, actually. So, the role of the USBE or Utah State Board of Education is to do such things as teacher licensing. They do standards for teachers and standards for curriculum. And and they also, if a teacher has misstepped, they have something called UPAC, which is a review of the teacher and teacher's behavior and decision making about their licensing going forward. But also a big part is, yes, working with legislators as bills are being formulated right now. That's happening even now. And they're working towards next session. The USBE board members are having conversations. They're also setting their own goals. And they set their own goals and they say, okay, legislators, this is what we really see needs to happen. How can we get this done? And those relationships between the legislators and the board, those relationships are formed and create um, an opportunity to, while they have different roles, while they don't always agree, when you have strong relationships, you have an equal type of authority that you're working on.
so
So,
do you recommend legislation to the legislators? Where does the legislation come from? I would expect that school legislation would come from the school boards. Is that how that works?
uh, I don't I don't think so. Well, I think that there is a partnership. And
Okay.
so it, I've not been on the board yet, so this is what I understand, but I have heard how legislators, they're talking to USBE members, they're sorting through because the legislature will hear from a constituent, I'm concerned about XYZ. And then they go, "Oh, we've got a problem." And then they want to check with the USBE to say, "Is this really going on? Is this something we need to address?" And so there you go. They've got this give and take. So
And what is USBE? That's the State Board of Education. Is that what
that's
that
right.
is?
Utah
Okay.
State Board of
Okay.
Education.
USB. I learn a lot of stuff by talking to people, and
Right.
sometimes people will use acronyms, and I'll go, "What is that?"
I know. There's education has so many. I'm still like, well, what does that mean?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I used to do military contracts, and everything was acronyms
Oh,
there.
yeah. I bet.
It drives me nuts because
Mhm.
you don't know what that acronym means, you get lost. So,
Yeah, I know.
so, so what is it about the Board of Education that you would improve? What would you like to see fixed? What are the
Okay.
improvements that you think are necessary?
Sure. Yeah. And these are actually my thoughts are informed by the conversations that I've had this summer and this fall. As I've listened to so many different leaders and teachers, I've seen patterns. of needs. And again, these are people that are boots on the ground. They're the front line. And so when they speak, I listen. And what I've learned is there's a few things that have kind of risen to the top. Well, representation, number one. Okay, I've already talked about that. But beyond that, attendance is a big problem. And
I've heard that. Keep
and
going. Tell
mental
me.
illness, right? And mental illness or mental health, let's say. Um, a lot of kids are coming here with trauma.
Well,
Um,
when I think of attendance, I think of, how many kids are in school and how many kids are out of school, and it might refer to people in public education versus people who are in homeschooling. So when you talk about attendance, what does that mean?
yeah, you're really close there. So what we're talking about is how many kids are in school on any given day. And so one summer afternoon, I was very tired on the campaign trail and I decided to take a rest. And I had heard that attendance was a problem, but I thought, well, let's find out what it actually is. So I went through every single school in our district, public education school in our district, and I looked at the difference between 3 years ago, attendance wise, and today. And what I discovered is that across the board, now there are bright spots, but across the board in District 6, we are down 10% on average. That is really significant. So where it might have been 98% 3 years ago, it's 80%, 88% now. And that is directly tied to learning.
Well,
So we really need.
you're talking when you say attendance, you're talking about kids in class.
Yeah.
So the number of kids in class has reduced. Um,
Yep.
so it's like truancy rates almost, right?
That's right. Let me give you an example of why this could be a problem. I think everybody can know, it's a problem, but I was with a librarian from Salt Lake District 2 weeks ago at a street fair. And I just introduced myself, told her I was running, and I talked about attendance. I mentioned it. And she said, "Oh, well, I'm a librarian and I agree with you. Let me tell you." And she said that, for example, a librarian, we usually think that librarians just check out books and they're all about the books, but they actually are technology specialists also. And so they develop lessons for class. And so classes will come in, they'll do a lesson. So she said, I'll do a 3-week lesson, um, 1 week that builds on the other, just like, say, an episode of your favorite TV show. If you didn't see the show before, you're not going to have all the context for this new one, right? And it's like that for her lessons too. She has a 3-week series of lessons. And she said, Diane, my class looks different every week. And so you can imagine the difficulty for a teacher, a librarian, or even, of course, a classroom teacher, of trying to build on what you're teaching when kids are in and out of class. So I spoke with one principal a few weeks ago, and she said that, yes, their attendance is down, and they have done everything they can think of to raise attendance levels, and it has not been working.
Well, isn't that really a responsibility of the parents to
Thank
make
you.
sure that kids are in school?
That's right. And that's exactly what she said. She said, honestly, at this point, we've got to hold the parents accountable for that. And, maybe COVID started the behavior, but we're long past COVID now. And for some reason, kids are not getting to school in the numbers that we used to. And so this is something I'd like to work on. I'd like to get to the bottom of why we can't hold parents accountable, or maybe why parents aren't feeling as pressed to get their children there every day. It might take home visits just to say, hi, we're missing your child.
That's funny because I'm a product of LA Unified School District, Los Angeles.
Okay.
And if you didn't show up for class, they'd come knock on your door. Go,
were they nice?
And I mean,
were they nice, Duane?
Well, if you were sick, that's one thing. But yeah. I mean, a lot of us tried to cut classes. Okay.
Okay, I was in Liberty Park, I don't know, like a month ago, And I was just passing out flyers, and I saw this group of kids. They were all just hanging out. It was a Saturday. They were hanging out together. And I was just chit-chatting with them, and they said, "Well, what problems do you see?" And I said, "Well, one thing's attendance." And they're like, "Yep, we're
Well,
seeing our friends.
we call it
We don't know
truancy.
what they're doing.
You're
They're
truant.
out." Yeah,
You're out of class. You're truant, and
yeah.
they
So, I
just
mean,
ignore
in
you
some
for
ways,
that.
I feel like the kids see it. They know that the kids should be in class, so they're
Well,
probably
and
scratching
it
their
might,
heads. Why are people not being held accountable?
well, and it might be the parents don't know because we wouldn't tell our parents if we were cutting classes, okay?
Oh,
but
that's
but
true.
I mean,
You're probably right, actually. Although a
well,
lot of parents don't
and
even know
and you know, it's like,
their work.
what do you think about that? What can we do to improve that? What can we do to fix that? I guess go knock on doors. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I think that's one way. Maybe the parents aren't aware. And I think when you show that you care, that you're cared for, that you're missed, I think that makes a difference. I really
Well,
do.
I think you have to be careful about that because you don't want to be like the truant officer who
Yeah.
an authority figure. It's like we're concerned, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I start there.
Well, and
um, I
there's a
also,
lot of issues here. There are a lot of issues. I'm amazed by schools, and I mean, there's so many things I hear about, like Utah is banning books. Is that true? What can you educate me on that? What's I mean, speaking of librarians, I mean
yeah.
that's related, right?
Well, thanks for asking that question, actually, because that is the top question that I'm asked. If I meet someone on the street and they want to chit chat, if it's not the first question, they usually get around to that one. And I think it's really important to talk about because we are so divided in our community about this issue. So, my answer, first and foremost, is that every parent has and must be supported by our communities the right to choose what their children are reading. We have to we have to preserve that. But when we're talking about a public school setting, it's a little different because we are so divided. And in my opinion, when we have a controversial subject such as this, I feel like it's respectful to go to the lowest common denominator and find a solution that works for most people. And I feel like we've kind of done that with our plan in place right now. And again, it is not about topics. We want our children to be challenged, to understand what's happening in the world. It's only about these graphic sexual content that the legislature has said this is something we're going to try and remove. Again,
So
lots of
you're not
people
banning
disagree, though.
books. You're trying to protect the children from outside influences, I guess, and it's hard to do that. The minute you say, "Oh, this book is restricted," guess what? The kids are going to go want to look at it anyway. But
Well, and that's something people talk about. But I have to tell you that one person's protection is another person's non-protection. So, and this is what I'm hearing in my district. People are very concerned about this idea of removing books that would help children to see the world the way it really is. And I respect that. I really do. And that's what a lot of people are concerned about. Um, but okay,
it's just
so
I
but
see how to determine what is age appropriate. Okay, I mean it's hard. It's really hard. But that's part of your job, right? Is that what the school board does? Or I mean, obviously there are board level decisions and school level decisions and librarian level decisions and statewide. How does that work?
yeah, so
About a
we
litmus test or something, but
it's
go
been
ahead.
done. The decision has actually been done for our state. For better or worse, people are not excited. Some people are not excited about it, but when you have a law that comes through, we do follow the law, and I, as a board member, will do the same, and we have policy that reflects or respects the law of carving out particular, situation specific graphic sexual content.
Okay.
And so age appropriateness, that's what we're talking about when we're talking about a public school setting. And parents have lots of options when it comes to this topic. Uh, if they can opt their child out of a book and get a new option, they can opt in. So teachers can request a permission slip for certain materials for an opt-in as well. Additionally, you can have a parent may look at a book um, that's in the schools and say, I think this violates Utah code. I think,
I'm
and
going
they
to let
can
you talk for
challenge
a minute.
it.
I'm getting some glitches from my video, so you
Okay.
keep talking about these books because
Okay.
it's probably a big topic. I'm going to disappear for a second. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, so what I was just saying is that parents have the option to challenge a book, and the school district looks at that challenge. They decide whether it's going to stay in the schools or be removed. And then what happens is if a book is removed, it's sent. The USBE is alerted. The Utah State Board of Education is alerted that this book has been removed. And when that same book is removed in 3 separate districts, that triggers a review by the Utah State Board of Education. And they have a 30-day window to look that book over and determine if they feel like they're going to let the removal go statewide, or they're going to defend that book and say, no, I see the 3 of you think it needs to go, but we disagree. And so that's actually what's happened. And many of you viewers are probably aware that there are 13 books that just recently went through that process and were allowed to be removed statewide. Now, this is a topic that when I talk to voters on the streets, they want to know how I feel about it because they're trying to decide between me and my opponent. But I want to make sure that everyone is aware that we're alike in this, in the sense that because I have seen those books and I support their decision to remove them because they don't seem like content-rich books that are going to improve education, and that's what we're looking for. But what happened was they had the 30 days. My opponent did not stand and defend any of the 13 books. She likes to say she's not for banning books. I've heard her say that, but I think I'm not for banning books either. But in a public school setting, it appears that she and I are the same in that there are some books that are not age appropriate for children in a public school setting. So
it's kind of a group decision then.
oh, absolutely. Yes.
And I don't like to think of it as banning books. I think of Fahrenheit 451 where books are burned. That's not really what you're doing. You're not banning books. You're protecting the kids. What you're trying to do. And like I said, it's a slippery slope. What does that mean? But I mean, there are things.
Honestly, Duane, some people say you're protecting the children, and other people would push back on that. And I want to respect that as well. But what we're doing is we're following the law. The law has stated very clearly what can't be in schools, and we follow laws. At the end of the day,
you're not really you're not burning books. You're just trying to protect the children, and you have laws that tell you what to do, right? I mean, so
yeah.
All right, banning books. It is a slippery slope, and when they say banning books, I don't believe that that's the case. You're not banning books. You're trying to appropriately work with the children and try not to give them stuff that's pornographic, smutty, whatever. Okay.
We don't want pornography in schools.
No,
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
The wrong place for that. Yeah.
And like I said, the minute you ban something, guess what that's going to do? That's going to increase someone's curiosity about it. Well, why did they do that? And they're going to go dig anyway. Okay. So it's kind of crazy, but I don't look at it as censorship. It's not censorship. It's not banning books. Okay. So,
there is a finite number. There is a finite number of books we can teach in a year to children or put on a library shelf. So if we said we were banning books by removing particular books, then therefore are all the other books that aren't on a shelf, are they banned? Right? And we only have room for certain number of books, so we have to be selective about
Well, yeah,
what's the
Diane. I
most.
mean, you have to be selective. You're not going to put Playboy magazines on the bookshelves, right? You just not. You don't have room for those.
Yeah, it's true. But we want content-rich material that is going to be really high quality for our children.
Okay. All right. Enough about banning books. I did. The whole concept is just wrong to me. But I mean, there are reasons, and you have law.
I'll say one last thing, and that is that having said all of this, this does not preclude parents from choosing what they want for their children to read. And they can get books outside of the public school square. They can get everything that they want. They can have those conversations. And I feel confident that parents are doing that. You know,
I think
every parent cares about their children and they want the best for their children. And so
absolutely.
do teachers. Yeah.
I concur. I think
Mhm.
and it's really the parents' responsibility to be aware of
That's
what
right.
their kids are doing. So
Yeah.
okay. Now I have another question about there's Amendment A is coming up, and you said you work with legislators, but what are your thoughts about that? Would you support opening up income tax to be? I mean, it's coming. There's tell us a little bit about it.
I mean, I'm not sure if it's coming. We'll see. In our district, in my district, people are not excited about it at all. I'd be surprised if it didn't pass. I'd be surprised if it passed. Let me say that. Uh, so for those of you who aren't aware of this issue, Amendment A is on our ballot. It's still undecided. It's going through the court system right now. It may not even be voted on. But
It may not make it to the ballot, right?
yeah, but should it? Well, so hypothetically, how do I feel about it? So what Amendment A does is it takes the income tax fund, which has historically been reserved only for education, then was lately extended to children's needs and people with disabilities. So we have expanded it a little bit. The income tax that we get, that fund is growing. It's growing a little bit. And the sales tax, which provides other programs, all kinds of programs with funding, that fund is going down a little bit. And so legislators are looking at this fund that's expanding and thinking, wow, I think we maybe could use this for some of these other programs. And so they want to take out the restrictions and open it up to whatever it is that they need to use. A lot
Where
of
do most of the funds come from for schools now? Is it property taxes? Do you know how that
property
works?
taxes, yeah. Property taxes, income taxes. And we have what's called trust land funds. There's a number of ways that we get our money,
Yeah,
but
I've
we're
heard
talking about income
about
tax.
land. That's kind of a complicated issue too. But keep going, keep going. Thank you.
Yeah, it is. And trust lands, we only get about 150 per student right now. So it's a much smaller fund, but parent decided on. That's aside.
Do you know
So back,
what the capital expenditure is like per student in Utah? Because I've
well,
heard that, I've heard things all over the board that we're way at the bottom, or we're in the what's going on with that as far as per student per capita expenses.
so they call it WPU, excuse me, weighted pupil units, and that's about 43 or 4,400 right now, but that is not the amount of money we pay per student. It's much higher. For example, in Park City, I think we're upwards of maybe 20,000 per student. It's very high.
Oh
So
wow,
yeah, it's
wow!
very, very high. So there's lots
That's
of things that go into that.
four
But
four
back on
times
Amendment
four times the average. Yeah. Okay.
A. Yeah. Back on Amendment A. So the income tax, they want to open it up to to use for whatever that they see they need. And this is a really complex issue. I do not claim to understand all of this, okay? I think there's more I need to learn on it. It's really complex. But as far as I understand today, I'm concerned about opening this up to other programs when we have needs in education that have not yet been fulfilled. We have needs with um, class sizes are big. They're growing again now that the COVID money's gone. Class sizes are a big concern to a lot of parents. That's something I wish we could fund before we're opening up to new programs. So, but the thing is that the legislature has said we will give guarantees that education will always be funded. In fact, it's going to be funded even more in the future. And since our population in the state of Utah is dwindling and they are increasing their funding, we actually are getting even more money for education with that in mind. But again, I'm just nervous about it. And so if I had to vote today, I would vote no. Holding in reserve that I bet you there's more things I need to learn about it. We all need to learn to understand why it is that the legislature feels so sure that this is a good idea. And it might have to do with consistency, the payment to education to keep it consistent and not be tied to ebbs and flows. So I think that might be a key that we need to understand better.
And I'm much more interested in how the money is spent more
Okay.
efficiently than why if what are we doing? Why are we adding more money here if we're not spending what we've got efficiently? And I mean that's kind of a conservative concept, and so
I think it's always important to revisit. In fact, the USBE board members are doing just that right now. They're going through every program to see what is actually working. And if something is not getting that RTI, return on investment, that they were hoping for, they are diminishing it or letting it go by the wayside. And they want to elevate those programs that are working well. And I applaud that. I am so glad to hear that because we don't have time for programs that aren't working. And we don't have money for that either.
so why do you think there are programs that aren't working? Are you seeing it happen?
I mean, people have a great idea and they hear that it's good. And so they say, let's give it a shot. There are pilot programs all the time that go out and sometimes they don't sunset. They just keep going.
They just
But
keep going. Yeah.
yeah, so it's important. I think sometimes we forget, over the years things go. And for example, let's see if I can recall this. Oh yeah, there's this one fund that schools get to help keep class sizes down. And it's not to bring them down any further. It's just to keep things status quo. But this money has now been extended to schools that don't need to bring their class sizes down or they don't need it, but everybody's getting it. That's an example if they just kind of just happened over time, over years, and now they're looking at it to say, okay, we need to tighten this up. And I really applaud that. I bet there's lots of examples like that.
All of this stuff that you're talking about, you seem to know what you've done some work here, haven't you? You've done some homework, haven't you?
Yeah.
Go ahead and toot your own horn. It's okay. I mean, what? How do you view yourself against your opponent? I'm not going to mention any names, but how do you view yourself against?
I mean, she's got to know so much more than me at this point. I'm just going to say she's been there for 8 years and she wants 4 more years. So that would be 12. And honestly, I can learn. I'm a smart person. I can learn.
It
And
sounds like
12
you already
years,
have a good knowledge of this, Diane.
well, I know I have a lot more to learn, and I know she
Every
does.
question I've come up with, but I have more. So keep going.
Thanks.
But tell me
Yeah.
why you think it's important for you as opposed to your opponent,
Well,
and
I
maybe
think most
12 years is enough. That's a good reason.
I find that most people when I say 8 and then 12, they're like, "Ugh." I believe in term limits. I don't know who she is, but that's a long time. And I have to agree. I mean, think about what we do just about anywhere. We finally get tired. We get stale. It's great to switch people out. And so I think this is not an exception here. It's She actually was 27 years before that as an attorney at the state board in the state office of education. So she's been there 40 years. That's a
Well,
long time.
this has become, although education shouldn't be, it's become a partisan race. And so, what is your party affiliation? Tell us about that. What does that mean to you? How
Okay.
will it affect how you deal with this? Okay, go ahead.
Right. So it is a partisan race. It's been that way for just under 10 years. And during that time, and I think there were definite reasons. They wanted people to know who their representative basically is without having to do a lot of in-depth research. And so they put that in place. But I think the unintended consequence is the divisiveness that we're seeing on the board right now. There is a level of divisiveness that we
I have heard that, Diane. I've heard
Mhm.
that it's a big struggle. Keep going. Keep going. Tell us
That's
about it.
right. That's right. And so running unaffiliated, I feel it. So when I tell people that I'm running, and for those of you who don't, it's independent basically. So when I tell
Yeah,
people
you are not Republican. You are not Democrat. You are
unaffiliated, that's right. And
well,
so when I tell
that
people,
kind of describes me. But go ahead. Keep going. Thanks.
okay,
This
great,
is not
we're
about
together.
me. It's about you.
So many people are that way. And even those who are of an affiliation, I am just every time I talk to people and I mention unaffiliated, their shoulders come down, their eyes are perking, they're like, "Oh, yes, thank you." And we both agree that education should not be partisan because
Well,
it's not.
it's strange that it's kind of like being a sheriff or something like that. There's no
Yeah,
partisan affiliation there. Like like being a district attorney. It's like, come on, this is supposed to be impartial, right?
that's right. It should be because no no political party has a corner on good ideas. So me as an unaffiliated member, I can look around for whatever it is I'm looking for evidence-based, I'm looking for things that are proven to work. We're not gonna adopt things that are fluffy or we just don't have time for that, right? So, but I can look anywhere and I'm not tied to a party agenda. Um, I've heard that sometimes board members are in their meeting and they're getting a text from someone, "You better vote XYZ, or I'm gonna do whatever." And I'm so excited to not have any kind of affiliation, but just looking for what's good for children. And I know that that is people can say, "Well, this is good," and then the other side, "This is good." But still, I feel like it's a better situation to come at it just independent and find out and choose what's best.
So as an independent, Diane, your thumb is not on the scale, right?
Yeah, no
That's
strings attached.
this divisiveness that's come about over the past 15, 20 years is it really it,
Mhm.
it's damaging. It's damaging. Okay, and
Yeah,
so
I think
yeah.
everybody's feeling it. I really do. I'm just crossing my fingers that when people get on to when they get at the ballot and they see a Democrat and a blank, which is basically just as my name, no affiliation, just crossing my fingers that they will choose that blank because I think that blank says a lot. It says, I'm going to be able to sit around with my associates and just talk together, bring people together like I love to do, and have conversations that are not tied to any political agenda.
Well,
Um,
and that will kind of affect the way you vote, won't it?
yeah, yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
yeah.
Mhm. It's more freeing, I think, I feel like.
All right, I got another topic here for you, and this
Okay.
one makes me crazy, and it's about safety. People
Okay.
people want to keep their kids safe in school, and
Hmm.
and I mean that has a bunch of different meanings. How do you do that? How do you keep people safe? The children, the children really is what it's about, I guess.
Yeah, and I think our school districts are actually doing quite well with that. If I go to a school, there each district has their own flavor of how they keep people out of the school that they well, how you there is a barrier there. You cannot enter the school without either pushing the button or calling someone. There's a camera. They're looking at you to see who you are before they let you enter. So I love that system. It is one more step, but it's definitely something that's keeping our children safe. So when you talk about safety, we actually have a couple of different safety pieces. We have the physical safety and we have the emotional safety. So physical safety is those something like we just talked about. It also encompasses the safety bill, which we've got online right now that districts are, I should say, scrambling to comply with. And what that asks for is a guardian in every school with that's trained and that carries a gun. And the safety bill is provided for or has said you have to have 2 trainings, you've gotta have your own gun, and you can't be a staff member. So it's gotta be or a like a teacher, can't be a
Oh,
teacher in
really?
this.
Okay,
Right.
okay. That
So
curious.
in my district, people are not happy about that bill at all, that law. They don't like the idea of a gun in school. They are nervous about it, and they feel like the training, 2 trainings I have to agree. Taking a person and just saying, "Here's your gun, here's your $500 for a gun, and here, we'll train you for a couple times," that is not sufficient, and I'm guessing that they're gonna tweak this bill going this next year. I really am hoping that they do, because there's a
Well,
lot of people who are very unhappy with the way this has, been and it was supposed to be done over 5 years, and I feel like it would have been better we would have been better served if they had taken their time. I suppose there's reasons they pushed it through, but,
well, and
you
I
know
have my own opinions about gun-free zones and that sort of thing because I'm just an old guy, and I'm a huge proponent of Second Amendment. But they're starting to call schools with gun-free zones. They're soft targets, and something needs to be done.
yeah.
And I don't know what the answer is. My answer is carry, but but
It's kinda interesting, Duane, because
and
I
it's
was just
difficult.
talk oh, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just talking to one of the sponsors of the safety bill yesterday, and I was expressing some of the concerns that people in my district have, and he said, "Diane, what you don't understand is they already have guns. They're already carrying in schools."
Guilty, Your Honor.
I didn't know that, but they do already. I didn't realize that, but they do. And so, there's a lot that needs to be done there, I feel like. T Districts are scrambling to fund this big safety bill, and they're also scrambling to find people to actually do the monitoring. So, especially in smaller areas, they just don't have the people to do it always. So,
Well,
okay, so that's the physical.
there's another side of this safety. Keep going, because
Right, so emotional
that's physical
safety.
safety. The other
Right.
thing that comes up is
Mhm.
emotional safety and safe zones and cognitive dissonance and that. So can you tell us what your thoughts are?
So I hear the word safe used in a lot of different ways these days.
Yes.
Um, I don't feel safe when you say that or, this type of thing. Our children in school need to feel emotionally safe. And I believe that one of the best ways to emotionally provide them with safety is to teach them so that they feel strong academically. And if they feel strong, that is a level of protection for them. On the flip side, we do have vulnerable groups. The trans kids, for example, they're a vulnerable group. We need to look out and make sure that when bullying happens for any child, not just, this other group, if children are being bullied, if they're being harassed, I think it is incredibly difficult. No, sorry, incredibly important that we have their back and that we pull in those that are harassing, those that are bullying, and make sure that they are held accountable. It's very important. I have friends that have left my own district because they haven't had that kind of treatment. Their children have been almost felt like they're the one in trouble. But kids need to know that if they do something wrong like that, A, they need to know it's wrong. B, they need to know that they're gonna get in trouble about it. They're gonna be talked to.
What accountability? Really?
So
Yeah,
that
accountability.
they will not do it in the future.
Please. Yeah.
Mhm.
Ah, well, schools, and it's funny. I'm a technologist, and I was an egghead in school, and people picked on me, and I back in those days, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, there was no. I mean, you dealt with it. You just deal with it. We didn't need to
I
be protected
mean,
from it because it made me a tougher person. I mean, I started taking wrestling classes, and I got tough.
yes, you're an old bird.
It's really hard. That's old school.
That's there's a lot of kids who they do have struggles, and we do want to support them. I think there's a
It's
balance there.
painful. It's painful. It really is. But
Mhm.
maybe something can be done. Maybe something can be done. And holding people accountable is a good way to do that.
Yeah.
All right. So, one of the other questions that I get asked is about the teachers themselves, retention, and and we have we have trouble, I suppose, keeping teachers. And why is that? What's the deal with teacher retention?
Well, there's actually two parts to this the teacher issue. Our wonderful teachers, we don't have enough of them,
Well,
and
and I
so our
will say
teaching
it's a very difficult job. I've taught, okay, not at the level of being an elementary or junior high teacher, but it's hard to keep people. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so decades ago, we were graduating like 33% education graduates in college. Now we're down to 5%. So there's definitely it's a thing. We have fewer teachers in our teaching pool. And so the USBE, Utah State Board of Education, has implemented a couple of really cool programs. One is called Grow Your Own. And what that is if you have a para or someone that's working in the school that is not a licensed teacher, they have a program to help them to get their license in a very slick way. So I love that. And secondly, they have a program for professionals. Say you're finished your career and you're ready to retire and give back to the community. Some people want to become teachers. They have their skills, they know a lot about their profession. And so we have a program that helps them to, in a faster, easier way to get their license. We're not pulling people off the streets and just giving them a license, of course. We're saying, here's a system, here's a plan that you can go through. You're learning about pedagogy, you're learning about behavior management in classes, and helping those professionals to get into the classroom quicker. So those are a couple of different things. And then we talk about teacher retention. And it kind of pulls back to what you're talking about, Duane, of that it's harder to be a teacher than it used to be. It just is. Children are different than they used to be. They don't have the attention span. They've got, for whatever reason, there are a lot of children that are suffering with mental health issues. We've got a lot of kids who don't speak the language now. So there's a lot of challenges, opportunities for growth, as we call them, uh, for teachers. And discipline is one of the biggest ones that's the challenge. So 2022, the year 2022, we had an audit that the state did, and they looked at teacher retention. why are some teachers leaving, or why are they thinking about leaving? And a lot of people, they say teacher pay. That's got to be the highest. Actually, it's fifth. What's the highest? It's student, it's stress. And what is that? What is behind that stress? When you drill down to it,
I
and this
think
is
it's
part of the audit, it's
burnout.
behavior. It's poor behavior in the classroom.
Well,
That's the biggest stress.
and
Mhm.
burnout. I mean, just like every job these
Yeah, they're
days.
burning out, but so we want to not overburden our teachers. We need to provide them with resources, maybe an aide or a para that pops in to maybe, this is an idea a principal had, it's not mine, but I love it. She said, if I could just have two paras that all they do, we know our 5 kids that are going to lose it at some point during the day. If I could have just 2 extra paras, send them around, and they can just maybe pull the kid out for 5 minutes or step in and, how are you doing, that type of thing. So we need to give the teachers more resources. Another thing that would help them is if they had more flexible time. Right now, everything is so programmed, and teachers have so many things that are rules and regulations on them that it's kind of taking some of the joy out of teaching now, taking it flat out. I mean, when I became a teacher, it was because I love to teach. And now you hardly get a chance sometimes to read a book because it's just so programmed, and for good reason. I'm not saying it isn't. And they are seeing, they're seeing results from the things that they're doing. But I think teachers would probably really enjoy, I know they would, less restriction and um, more flexibility. So,
Okay, well, like I said, this whole teaching concept, it's a tough job. I've done it and I've seen how it
yeah,
works, and
it's
man,
rewarding though.
God bless the people who are teachers, because
Yeah.
it's, you know, and then on, on top of trying to keep them, we have all of this technology that's going on in schools now too. I mean,
Hmm.
technology is a big piece of this, and it's hard
Yeah.
for teachers. I'm a technologist, so I've said that before, but I kind of understand, and I will tell you, a lot of people are afraid of the technology. They're technophobes. Because they don't understand it. So how are the teachers dealing with that? You know,
I,
even if I
that may be
study,
true. That may be true about the understanding, but I think it may go even further than that, actually, Duane. I think it's because they do understand it. They understand, they're seeing evidence of lots of things that they're not happy with. So I feel personally that our state has been so over the moon over technology that I feel personally that we've reached a tipping point
well, and we're
many ways.
almost like a mini Silicon Valley here. I mean, that's Utah's high tech. It's just high tech.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's hard dealing with technology. I'm tech support for a bunch of people, and I will tell you, sometimes it's difficult. It's difficult. How do the teachers deal with this?
Well, let's talk about a couple things. Number one, we've got AI, which is here to stay, and we can't
Oh,
hide
hey,
that.
hey,
It's here.
don't
Yeah.
get me started about AI, because I totally understand it. But how are the teachers dealing with it? Thank you. Keep going, Diane.
So the Walton Family Foundation in California, they commissioned a survey that came in this last May. And what they discovered is that 50% of teachers and K-12 students are using AI at least weekly, both in and out of school. So this is up 25% from last year. So this is really significant. And what it tells me is that we've got to get ahead of AI and take a look at it in the way, take a look at it as a tool to augment human intelligence. And this is actually not just my idea, this is what the Walton Family Foundation suggested. Get ahead of it. Um, let it augment human intelligence, but we've got to focus on what human beings can do and things that they have capacity for that AI can't do. And we've got to make sure that our students are agent learners, that they are deciding to remain active and not complacent learners. So very important. And then we've got the other side. The other side is the whole cell phone issue. And
Yeah,
I
cell
know
phones
that
and
they're talking
tablets.
about,
Yeah, yeah,
go
yeah.
ahead.
Cell phones and tablets. You know, they're they. It's almost it's like a an addiction with cell phones for people, and because they've gamified all of this Facebook and YouTube, but yeah, it's how do you deal with that with the cell phones and tablets and everybody screen time and that sort of stuff?
All right, so the word you said was gamify, and I think that's an important word when we're talking about learning. Most kids have a Chromebook now in the state of Utah,
Oh, okay.
and
That
they
that
use,
technology is Chromebooks and instead of
mhm,
iPads.
yeah, they have a Chromebook. Most of them do,
Same idea.
and
Same idea. Yeah.
the programs that are used for that teachers use are gamified, and so it really is. It's changing the face of education, in my opinion, in a negative way. In some ways, okay? It's great to be used as a tool for, say, assessment. They were brought in years ago for assessing children to see gaps, and once the gap is found, the teacher can fill in real time. That is amazing. That is really useful and helpful. It can be used for tools for teaching in certain ways. But when a teacher is relying on a computer program to teach children to read, I think we need to step back and ask ourselves, is this really the best use of the child's time? There is
Yeah,
a
that's brilliant.
connection.
That's
There is
brilliant.
a
Yeah.
connection that happens between teacher and student that cannot happen with a Chromebook. Besides the fact that, you go to your pediatrician, the pediatrician says, okay, your child is such and such an age, they can watch, whatever, 2 hours per day of, screen time. The kid gets that at school. So the parent is expecting, okay, when the child gets home from school, all right, son, daughter, you've got 2 hours. That's all, because that's what the pediatrician says you can watch.
And they've
They
already
already
spent
had
those
it
credits.
at
They've spent
school.
those credits already.
Yeah. So that's
Great perspective. Thanks, Diane.
basically, it feels like if we're going to rely on computers to teach our children to read, to me, it feels like they're getting a Walmart education when we really want a Nordstrom one.
Well, and I'm going to add something to that because I've taught classes, and interestingly, my my big nonprofit is mental illness, and I teach mental illness classes. I said that before, but when we went from live classes to the when COVID came along, we went to everything was Zoom. It's not the same.
No, it's
It's
not.
just not the same. I would see light bulbs come on over people's heads, and but there's just there must be a personal interaction when you're teaching people things.
It's a lot better.
And technology's okay, it works,
Yeah.
but so tell me, how
Funky.
do you feel about that?
Yeah. So
Enough about me.
right. Well, and let's talk about cell phones for 1 minute. I know we're just about out of time, but cell phones.
Wait, hold on. You can have as much time as you want, Diane. You
Oh,
are.
I'm gonna go horse.
This is brilliant for me. This is a great interview because I'm learning all kinds of stuff. So
Thanks.
okay, keep going.
Okay, so
Cell
just there on the cell phone. So I know that the legislature is talking about a statewide cell phone policy, which I haven't seen it. Um, maybe it'll be good. I have to admit, though, that I love the idea of what's happening right now. We've got local districts considering what they feel like is appropriate for their own students and the timing. I think most districts want to get it done. It's just in the way and the timing whether we want to just pull the Band-Aid off today or have have it happen over time and get kids used to it and parents used to it. Parents are, they want to be able to reach their kids when there is a problem, and I get that. they're worried about being able to access if we have an emergency. So, but the problem is that what we're seeing is so obvious. So Granite District they have a new policy this year.
What is Granite District? What is that? Is
Granite
that
District
one of the
is
sub districts?
Mill Creek, and it spans across the whole valley, and some of Holiday, some of South Salt Lake. So what they've done is they are bell to bell, they call it, for the lower grades, and then instructional time for the upper grades. And what they're seeing is noisier lunchrooms. People are talking again, and they're seeing Granger High School has reported getting through lessons faster because kids are more focused. This is so significant, and the bullying that happens with cell phones is it's a problem. And so all of these things, having cell phones because there's a reason why you want it, really comes at an opportunity cost, and the cost is learning. It
Well,
really
I
is.
remember
Learning and relationships.
I remember before there were cell phones, and I go, how did we ever get along before we had
Yeah,
cell phones?
I know. We're all that way.
And the moms are now connected to their children 24/7, and it's like,
Yeah.
sometimes you gotta let go a little bit, maybe. What do you think?
I don't have an opinion on that. I think some people just really feel they want to be connected, and I get that. There's reasons
I
for
get
that.
it. I get it.
Yeah, I don't think we want to force anybody to that.
Well, and here's my little anecdote about that is, and the cell phone number that I have, I got in 1984. Okay?
Wow.
It's the same number.
Did
And
we
the
have
reason
cell
I
phones?
got it was because my son's mother wanted to be connected to me so she could get a hold of me at any time for whatever. Okay.
Okay.
And I've had the same number ever since. That's like,
come on, Duane. I don't think we had cell phones in '84.
yes, we did. Yes, I got my cell phone in 1984, and it was a little brick Motorola.
Motorola. I do remember them.
It was an LED phone,
Mm-hmm.
and I've had the same number since.
Holy cow, that's amazing.
So if somebody wants to get a hold of me, they know how to do it because I've had the same phone number. But yeah, that was the reason she wanted to be able to get in touch with me.
Yeah.
At any point into anywhere.
Right.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because back in those days, just to have my little piece of this. Back in those days, I had this Motorola phone and an AT&T number, and it worked everywhere because it had power. I mean, these cell phones that we have now, they just work on microvolts, and so signals come and go. But I mean, I totally understand the wanting to be connected and wanting to be able to connect and being able to monitor. But sometimes parents need to let go a little. Otherwise, you have a helicopter child. So.
Yeah, I mean that's debated. But what I would say is that again, we're trying to preserve the academic opportunities for children, and when they are texting under their desk and not doing their assignment, it's hard for teachers. They're checking on them all the time. And
there are ways to turn off the phones without having them turn them off. That's just my technology perspective. I create a whole school so that no cell phones can come in. but
there you go. Duane, you can just solve the problem right here and now. Go for it.
We'll just turn them all off. Put your phone in the Faraday bag. All right.
I had this friend once, and he had a button in his bedroom, and all he had to do was push that button, and every light, and he had a lot of teenagers, every light in the house just shut off just like that. So there you go. I bet you'd like that button.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna just make a little brief notification here. You are listening to KMMU. We're live on Rumble, YouTube, X, Twitter, and of course on our website, kmmu.org. Thank you for joining us and listening to us today. I think we've been at this a little over an hour.
Yeah.
And do you want to make a closing statement about your candidacy, Diane?
I'd love to. Yes. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you two stories, two little anecdotes. like I said before, I've spent a lot of time in superintendent's offices, principals' offices, teachers with teachers and parents, and really trying to learn the lay of the land educationally here in our district. And one time I went to one of our superintendents and I went in the office, so excited to meet. And in the office were three other administrators. And the superintendent said, Diane, I brought these others here to see something that they've never seen before. We've never seen before, is what he said. It's like, oh, what is that? And he said, we have never seen a school board member walk through my door. And I was stunned.
Wow.
Couldn't believe it. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay.
then the second story, this was a principal, and I had left a message because I wanted to make an appointment and come visit her. And she called back and she was just so excited. She was practically giddy. And she said, Diane, I can't believe you called me as a candidate. And I said, yeah, I want to talk to you. I want to hear about your school and tell me, what you're learning and what your challenges are. And she said, I can't believe you're calling me. She said, yes, please. This will be such an important appointment for me. And I thought, wow. And she said, last year, I was going through the process of closing a school. There were quite a few schools closed last year.
Because of
And
attendance, or
and
what was the reason they
well,
were closed?
because there's diminishing numbers. I was and I called my school board member. This is the gal I'm running against. And I asked her to come and help me. And she never came. And I think that these two anecdotes explain my reason for running. This is not a Democratic or a Republican issue. This is a representation issue. We need a board member who's in schools, who's paying attention to the leaders, who are the ones who know. They're the boots on the ground. They know what's going on. And I am committed to being at every school my first year. In fact, I've already been in half of them, but I'm going back. And I'm going to say that I think that we're going to have better policies at the USBE board and better laws if we have a board member in our district that is talking regular communications with the state, with the local leaders. So when policies are being kicked around, laws are being discussed, votes need to be happening, I'll know where you stand. I'll say, oh, I know what we need to do. Yes, we should do that. No, 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 no. Or we need to nuance it this way, because I'll know what's going on in our own district. This is what I offer. This is my gift to you. I don't have another job. I'm going to be with you. I'll be your voice, and you're going to have my phone number. In fact, here's my number now. 801 450 4100. That's my number. I'll pick up. I'm going to be your voice. I'd like to be, and I ask for your vote. Diane Livingston, State School Board District 6.
Well, and just to tie this up, this
Yeah,
is the purpose of KMMU, okay, Main Street Media Utah. We want to give people a voice, okay,
great.
and that's where we're going with this. So we've given you a voice, Diane.
Thanks.
Thank you for being on our show, and
Thank you.
good luck to you.
Thank you.
You're in my district.
Please vote.
I will be voting. Okay, we'll put it that way.
All right. Good day. Thank you so much, Duane. This has been a pleasure.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to start sharing this out.
Okay.
Okay, because people need to know about you. Okay.
Thanks.
And like I said, I'm going to vote. I'm not going to endorse anybody, but
okay.
I think enough said.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.